Okay, I shall begin. So good evening. My name is Ian Tucknott. I'm head of school for the Humanities of Science. And it's my absolute pleasure to open this evening's event, the launch of City Lit Writing's Between the Lines Anthology 2021. Over the next 2 hours, although we might be a little bit shorter than that, you'll have the pleasure of hearing from our anthology writers and experience the delights of their poetry, short stories, life writing, creative fiction and non-fiction. Each of the writers has studied at City Lit in the past year, and through interactions with their tutors and peers and the harnessing of their imaginations, creativity and command of language, they have created something very special, and we're delighted to have them present the gifts of their labours to us tonight. I know from our other spoken word events that listening to these unique and incredible voices, we in the audience will be equally moved, joyed, challenged and inspired. I've always been attracted to this word inspire, particularly in terms of its connection with breathing. To inspire is in many ways to breathe life into something or someone, and to breathe out is to give life an inspiration in return. For me, human creativity is a life-enhancing force, the creative spirit, and when we harness it, it has the potential to connect us more to who we are, and in its sharing with others, we are all enriched. For me, the joy of writing is in the way it pools these different energies, creativity, inspiration, and life. In writing, we can integrate ourselves, our inspiration, our imagination, our creativity, even our worries, our joy, our hopes, and the things we love and we care about. Of course, it's not always easy. As the author Elena Lapin said at our recent Late Lines spoken word evening, writing is often a combination of joy and torture, a complex, often painful pleasure. But if we attempt, then where there was once a set of thoughts or feelings floating around our head and bodies, there can appear a tangible collection of words, images, characters, and experiences on a page. We can see part of ourselves outside of ourselves, living in those words or through our voices in the air. So as you sit this evening and breathe in the words and voices of each of these wonderful writers, I encourage you to tap into your own stories and expressions, the characters and imagery that exist within you. And afterwards, I hope that many of you will pick up a pen and paper or tape to your keyboards and start to bring that part of you to life. And who knows, maybe some of you will be here next year sharing your work with us as well. This year's anthology is dedicated to our dear friend and former colleague, Liz Harris, who we sadly lost to cancer earlier this year. Liz was a City Lit teacher, but also a writer, musician, singer-songwriter, and much more besides. And through her life, she harnessed her many talents, sharing and inspiring others through her educational and creative work. During the lockdown, Liz was living with her illness, and she wrote and published an incredible children's book, Sky and the Moonlit Garden, a book about loss, but also about life. It's always devastating to lose someone close to us, and it's hard, if not impossible, to feel that loss. And yet I am warmed by being reminded of the ways in which life remains with us, whether in memories, in words, or the stories we leave behind. It moves me deeply to think that at the end of her life, Liz gifted us this incredible story, one that in its narrative and images can help others in turn with the struggles of bereavement. All of us at City Lit and the many students she worked with over the years are undoubtedly blessed with the other stories Liz has gifted to us, whether in our memories, through her own writing, her music and songwriting, or the real life stories of the individuals she taught, helped, supported and impacted over the years. So here we are, joy, sadness, loss, gifts, imagination, creativity, imagery, characters, humans and lives. A huge thank you to our readers this evening who are about to share these things and a part of themselves with us tonight. As I hand over to our wonderful host, Maria Thomas, I invite you to sit back, open up to the words and be inspired. Thank you and enjoy.
Thank you, Ian. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first reader, Mark Donovan, with his piece on the Norber erratics.
Thank you. So my name is Mark Donovan, and I did a creative nonfiction course this year with City Lit, and I'd like to thank my tutor, Julie Garton, for giving us lots of ideas, things to write about. So this piece is called On the Norber erratics. Our first proper holiday after lockdown, and we're staying in a place called Settle. The irony of the place name is not lost on me after we've been forcibly settled for so long. Let me explain. Before the pandemic unleashed its new normal, I was the kind of person who traveled constantly. It's in my nature. A certain restlessness and a curiosity that drives me forward, seeking adventure. Like a sibling who remembers every shady detail of your past, Facebook pops up to remind me of a post I made in December 2019. First full weekend in London since April. It seems outrageous now, in a world that's been turned upside down. It's as though London finally got a chance to stake its claim on me, and Yorkshire seems as far away as Cambodia. My Facebook status now reads, first time out of London since December. We jump off the bus at Clapham. No, not Clapham, where local lockdown walks are over. This is Clapham in the Yorkshire Dales, an impossibly pretty village with a profusion of stone bridges and a merry little stream hurtling downwards in the expectation of a grander future. A dark tunnel takes us out of the village and into the open countryside. It's a scene from the Chronicles of Narnia, stepping out of the wardrobe into a completely different world. We're here to see the Norber erratics, not the name of the worst rock band ever, rather an unusual geological feature that has graced the covers of a generation of school textbooks. Huge grey-wack boulders of Ostwick grit, scooped up from the valley floor at the end of the Ice Age, a mere 12,000 years ago, and deposited precariously on top of the soft limestone hill of Robin Proctor's Scar. We are also swept up in a wave of exhilaration, muscles straining against the climb, and a fresh dose of Yorkshire air cutting through our lungs. And there they are, waiting for us, like a scattering of grumpy old men, maintaining a perfect social distance from each other, in misshapen lumps across the plateau. I find them beautiful and horrific in equal measure. Beautiful because of the space between the supporting limestone rocks as they hold up the much heavier weight of the boulders. The sky floods in between the gaps in a more natural version of Stonehenge, and there's something satisfying in the combination of sky and rock. I spent most of lockdown staring at an architectural feature on a building opposite our apartment, what's known as a kiosk, like a little hat on the roof, an oriental indulgence that serves no real purpose other than to let the sky shine through, pleasing the eye in the fusion of nature and artifice. Horrific, because I'm feeling sorry for the tiny little limestone rocks that have shouldered their burden for so long. That's the erratic bit, the world turned upside down. A tension that reminds me of the weight we've all been carrying in recent months. I can acknowledge it now that I'm on a hilltop, where the tricks of time spool out and settle all around me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for that beautiful reading. And now we'll move on to Michael Klimes with his piece, Univocal Batman.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael Klimes, delighted to be here. This poem came out of a poetry class I did with Ella Frears back during, at least what was for me, the third lockdown from January till, was it April or March, which I found the toughest. And her class kind of really kept me sane. And one of the exercises she gave us was to try a univocal poem, which is a poem where you can only use one vowel. So I chose A, and the poem's called Univocal Batman. At Assam Dam, Batman plans a dark prank at Fat Sam. Fat Sam's pants fall fast. Icar Santa calls and asks Wanda, what twat draws pants that fast? Wanda slaps Batman hard. That smack jars Batman's jaw. At Baghdad Bar, Jazzman Jack and Batman hatch plans. A spy spams Fat Sam's salad. A panda ransacks Santa's bag. Tank blasts Wanda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Wow, what fantastic wordplay. Let's move on now to our next reader, Candida Lloyd, with A Tale of Two Teenagers.
Hello, it's lovely to be here. I'd like to thank my brilliant City Lit tutor, Vicky Grutt. My piece is a short piece. It's called A Tale of Two Teenagers. We skated at the roller disco. We did handstands on the bed. You lived on the 15th floor. I lived in a mock Tudor semi. We had midnight feasts, turning a deaf ear to rowing parents. We wore matching kicker boots and split a knickerbocker glory. You called your mum Lynn. We hung tampons on trees at Greenham Common. We had our bra straps snapped by the boys. We had shepherd's pie at my house and stole booze from yours. We had fathers who worked abroad. We tried smoking on the underground. We faked foreign accents in public. You showed off, and I laughed until I wet my knickers. Then you laughed at me. You moved near the sea. Your stepfather moved out. Your neighbour screamed in ecstasy for clients. You were the new girl. Your mum typed 90 words per minute for minimum wage. She shouted, Maggie, 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 out, out, out. You and Sharon wore matching donkey jackets. You hid your H&M shopping bags. You showed off for Sharon. She didn't wet her knickers. I visited. Only 50 minutes by train. Then I didn't, disliking the screaming neighbour. You and Sharon talked about school and looked down at my kicker boots. I didn't have a donkey jacket. I recycled some old friends. My father stopped coming home. I avoided the empty nest. I gave lifts to other art students carrying outsized portfolios. I broke my curfew on nights at the Camden Palace. I microwaved the shepherd's pie. I snogged in someone's bedroom to canned laughter from the lounge next door. You became a professional show-off. I left a note at the stage door. We caught up on the landline. We hadn't changed a bit. We ate pasta al limone in your tiny flat. Our boyfriends discussed grappa. We all cavorted to Al Green until it was light. We too were now 4. We 4 made a habit of it, drinking until light. I gave up drinking and took up vomiting. We 4 became 5. You developed food cravings and then we were 6. We synchronised the next ones and both ate for 2. Our husbands drank enough for 4. We were 4 and 4. We didn't add up to 8. You appeared on TV a week after childbirth. I barely left the house. You hired a nanny. I played with Lego at 6 a.m. You collected from playdates dressed in a suit. I wore dungarees to tumble-tots. You networked in Soho. I ate fairy cakes and boiled eggs at birthday parties. You modernised your Victorian semi. Oh, and bought a house in Spain. I moved to the coast, near a good school. Only 50 minutes by train. You never visited. Thank you.
Thank you, Candida, for that fantastic reading. And now we have Laura McKinnon with 2 pieces, both poems, titled why pissing in the park wearing dungarees is a good metaphor for life, and your turn to take out the bins.
Hi everyone, I'm going to start with why pissing in a park wearing dungarees is a good metaphor for life. I wear my dungarees in lieu of a personality. They're storytellers, shapeshifters, and stereotypes. Sometimes I'm a DIY enthusiast, paint-flecked, passing time against my rented walls, practical and focused. Other times I'm an overgrown toddler, pocketed hands sulking, cheeks puffed out like fat cupcakes. Am I sexy? Probably not. But I've learned the absence of something makes you want it all the more. In lockdown, I live in my dungarees, strapping the snappy buckles above my breasts, ready for a battle or my daily walk. And they're a great shield, great until my bladder balloons, threatening to flood my body right where I stand, betrayed and ambushed in an East London park. But wild wheeze are now my forte. Squat, legs shaking behind an anemic bush, periscope neck with vigilant eyes. And as I crouch, it makes me think that pissing in a park wearing dungarees is a good metaphor for life. Dropping my denim armour to bear all in such an undignified manner, but what a relief to feel the amber splashback warm and light against my tight calves. A small pool forming on the lightly mudded earth, to purge the feeling that drowns me and makes me squirm and go small and so quiet. And when I shake my body like a soggy dog, I look around on the ground and I see dozens of muddy craters, intricate and perfectly formed, of all those who have peed before me. The remnants of torn tissues like little white flags, I take some small comfort to know that I'm not alone. And now my second poem, which is titled Your Turn to Take Out the Bins. Your turn to take out the bins never seems to come, so I'll teach you a lesson and let the rubbish overrun. Ooze and fester, watch that mess grow tall, till the eggshells tumble and banana skins fall. As the dark pool of juices starts to stink, the fruit flies will circle, and maybe you'll think, I should really take the bins out. They really do smell. Your eyes hovering on the mighty rubbish swell, the castle of muck dripping thick in the air. But trust me when I say, I really don't care. About soggy toast edges mingling with warm mayonnaise, I'll stay stoic, masking my malaise. Because rotting apple cores and snotty tissues must stagnate until you understand the issues of how share politics, which may seem passive-aggressive, but I prefer expressive, even impressive, that I refuse to give in as overripe air makes the house hazy, just to teach you to stop being so goddamn lazy. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that reading, Laura. Okay, let's move on now to our next reader, Kath Gifford with Jan La Purcell.
Hi. Firstly, can I say thank you for City Lit for getting me through 18 months of shielding, specifically to Sarah Westcott, Julie Irigaray, Jennifer Wong and Christina Dunhill, the last for her epic challenge, and also to thank Marie and Thomas for, it's not exactly a shape poem, but thank you for dealing with this and getting it all in. Jan La Purcell. Joan of Arc never dies, forever in film and stage immortalised, martyred, beatified, canonised. A peasant girl born in Domremy with instructions regarding sovereignty, lifted the siege of Orleans with her humanity. Operas composed by Verdi and, ballet included, Tchaikovsky, painted by Gauguin, Waterhouse and Rossetti. Orchestral manoeuvres in the dark sang She Should Have Known Better Than to Give Her Heart, whilst Leonard Cohen's love song left its mark. Now the flames, they followed Joan of Arc. Visions from the archangels, increased belief in expectations, and consecration for Charles, congratulations. There are many versions of Ingrid Bergman's Joan. What is fact or fiction will never be known. Now onwards lark has flown. Many notable Joans inhabited this coveted role, by Shaw, Brecht or Green exposing her soul, until surrender to the fire, its bride it stole. Burnt at the stake aged 19, by Burgundians English aligned, but this was not her final scene. Her ashes were thrown into the Seine. She was not afraid, maybe felt no pain. 100 years' war ended so Charles could reign. Nearly 25 years to overturn guilty for the concocted charge of witchcraft and heresy, ultimately created an eternal legacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kath, for that wonderful reading. And now we have Mel Orris with her pieces, 2 poems called 5 Lines and Time.
Hello, thanks very much. I did 2 courses during lockdown, one with Billy Manning and one with Christina Dunhill. And I'm just going to explain a little bit that this first poem was written on a prompt of only being able to write 5 lines to explore line breaks. 5 lines. I only have 5 lines to distract you with the chattering ratchet call of the jackdaw balanced on the hip iron of next door's roof, to conjure the oily blue-black hood, the static eye, a drop of ink in milk. No lines to lead you past the chimneyed nest, through sooted bricks and down into the twigs that snaggle in the grate. No time to usher you out into the cool air of the afternoon room where, listen, a flute offers up a litany into the hanging dust, and the congregational nestlings scream and scream in response. There's the second poem. Time. Time is mostly the vintage cat who plays the toy piano when she's hungry, star of her own peculiar cabaret, trading tunes for kibble in a tip jar. Rarely, it's a luminous honeybee, thrumming the mountain dulcimer, her wings charmed by the beacon of the LED downlight, bouncing golden notes off the strings. But recently, it's that spider, a set of bagpipes on stilts, unwieldy, alone, skittering across the tartan blanket that kilts the glass, shouldering his own drones. A luckless beast, unwittingly intent on marching off to play his last lament. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mel. It's incredibly evocative writing there. And now I'd like to introduce Shabana Glynn with her piece titled Neighbourhood.
Hello, this is Neighbourhood. Our front door is at the core of our house. It's on the way between kitchen and bathroom, between my desk and my husband's, between our rabbits and the living room, which means I walk past it several times a day. Next to it, there is a window as tall as the door and almost as wide. Today, in the post-dawn sunshine, flickering shadows of trees spill across the hallway floor, drawing me to the window to look out at the trees still whipped by the wind. I stay to watch a squirrel crack acorns on the low wall just outside. When I hear a van slowing down to stop outside, it gives me another chance to come to the window, where I wave a thank you to the masked deliverer. From my desk, I can see a different stretch of road. There are people walking up and down the street, to and from the village. More so this year than ever before. More people than cars still, as this latest lockdown is only just beginning to ease. As they walk in ones and twos, the shadows of bamboo and magnolia ripple across their down jackets. It must be cold. An older man steps into the middle of the road. I know that in a moment I will see someone coming up the pavement. A pair of walking partners come into view, and all three stop, chatting, across an awkward triangle of missed touch. Eventually, they take over the middle of the road, leaving the pavement for more passers-by. There are 2 stations within 2 miles of here, both with acres of currently empty car parks, and the main roads are quiet. I used to wonder which of the houses had anyone at home when I went past. Now I see desks at front room windows and garden offices springing up next to trampolines and climbing frames. I recognise many more of the people who live nearby as we smilingly deviate around each other. I know my neighbours much better than I did a year ago. Help has been given. Portions of home-baked cake have been gloved straight from cooling rack to sanitised boxes to doorsteps. Standing back from the door, we stretch a thank you, paying as much attention to every word and gesture as though back from the Antarctic. In a few months' time, I hope that the car parks and the trains will be busy, but never full. I want to carry on meeting local friends during the week rather than only by appointment at weekends. Maybe as well, parents working from home will be able to pick their own children up in the afternoons. This afternoon, I hear my 6 and 8-year-old neighbours coming home from school, one in a sparkly dress. It is the end of their longed-for first week back. They stand and wait for their mother to unlock the gate into their garden shortcut. When I am there, if they see me, they wave. Today, another family are with them, and the parents, one mother and one father, catch up for a while, enjoying the sun, distanced. The 4 children are hugging and chasing and squealing in a flurry of grey uniform and pink sequins. Normal things. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shamina. A really vivid piece there, wonderful. And now I'd like to introduce Sally Spears with her piece, COVID Survivor.
Hello everybody. I'd like to dedicate my poem to my neighbour who is the COVID survivor and who showed me so graphically what a terrible disease COVID was. Sitting in window, tethered to chair, dog to post, by exhaustion and oxygen pipe. On nostrils, callous blooms, the only nosegay. Neighbours pass, cheery, taking fresh air. Some wave, Irish Times in hand, refreshed from pub or church or chat of weather or gossip or news. Can't wave back. Outside, plants in patio pots I tended, brought to flower, wilt, gasping for water. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. A very powerful piece there. So now we have reached the point at which we'll take a 10-minute break just to allow everyone to breathe and get a drink if they need to. Contributors, I'll ask you to keep your videos off and your microphones off for the interval. We'll see you back at 7:10 for our second set of readers. Welcome back, everybody. To kick off the second half of our event this evening, I would like to welcome the next reader, Rosemary J. Brown, with her piece, In Which Nellie Bly is Laid to Rest.
Thank you, Maria. This is an excerpt from my book, written with help from City Lip, called Following Nellie Bly, Her Record-Breaking Race Around the World. Intrepid journalist Nellie Bly circled the world in 1890 faster than anyone ever had, alone with just a small bag. She beat the fictional record of Phileas Fogg, circumnavigating the globe in 72 days. 125 years later, I followed in her global footsteps because I wanted to put her back on the map. The book, Following Nellie Bly, recounts both of our journeys. And this is in New York at the end of the journey, in which Nellie Bly is laid to rest. The late September sun casts shadows on the tombstones surrounding us as we navigate this multi-faith cemetery that feels more like an open-air museum. More than 300,000 bodies rest in peace here at Woodlawn Cemetery in New York City's northernmost borough, the Bronx. Alongside the lavish memorials and simple headstones, Woodlawn is a wildlife refuge with woodpeckers, doves, geese, chipmunks, even a lake. It is also an official arboretum with 140 varieties of trees. Today, some species, the beeches, oaks, maples, and sassafras, are speckled with ruby and gold, hints of the radiant autumn to come. Woodlawn is a popular final resting place for the famous and powerful. Luminaries from the worlds of music, literature, politics, and industry are buried here, from Gilded Age magnates such as F.W. Woolworth to jazz greats like Duke Ellington and anti-slavery activists such as Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Like a cast from a movie, key characters in the story of Nellie Bly's record-breaking world journey rest with her at Woodlawn. The father of American journalism, founder of the Pulitzer Prize, and Nellie's former boss, Joseph Pulitzer, is commemorated in a family monument featuring a life-size bronze of a mythical male in classical garb, seated in contemplation. There are no words. Not far away, Nellie's fellow world circumnavigator, Elizabeth Bisland, lies with her husband, Charles, under a triptych headstone decorated with stylized vines, lilies, and a garlanded urn. The vines symbolize friendship, the lilies represent purity, and the urn immortality. We pose for photographs around her tomb, feeling the warmth released from the sun-baked granite. I place one of 12 long-stemmed white roses from a bouquet I bought for Nellie on Elizabeth's grave. Few remember that Elizabeth Bisland also beat Phileas Fogg's 80-day record, finishing her global journey in 76 days. As a self-proclaimed lady of literature who avoided the headlines, I do not think that Elizabeth would mind. At last, we are nearing Nellie's burial site, grave 212, section 19 in the honeysuckle lot. Woodlawn's historian, Susan Olson, leads us there, setting the scene of Nellie's burial. She has retrieved the official paperwork to show us. Passing the records to me, Susan explains that Nellie's family and friends did not provide sufficient funds for her internment. It seems Nellie herself did not set any money aside. She had none, we now learn. I am not prepared to find Nellie buried in a pauper's grave. As the reality of her final days becomes clear, I begin to understand that my pilgrimage will not be the culmination of my journey with Nellie Bly that I had expected. My eyes sting, uninvited tears well and fall, and my lips tremble. Not so much with sadness, but with a bitter sense of injustice for Nellie. She died of pneumonia on the 27th of January in 1922, aged 57, at St. Mark's, a hospital in Manhattan founded to treat the destitute. 2 days later, she was buried in a simple grave among the victims of the great influenza epidemic of 1918-19, then the deadliest in history. She laid in virtual obscurity for 56 years until the New York Press Club erected a modest granite headstone. It reads, "To Nellie Bly, by the New York Press Club, in honor of a famous reporter." Nellie is much more, however, than a famous news reporter. She paved the way for female journalists, opening newsroom doors to women like me, and pioneered investigative reporting, the kind of journalism that brings about change and makes the world she circled a better place. Nellie Bly defied the status quo, gave voices to the vulnerable, championed women's rights, and to this day challenges us to believe that nothing is impossible if one applies a certain amount of energy in the right direction. We stand before her simple headstone, no higher than our knees, to pose for photographs. I arranged the 11 remaining long-stemmed white roses on the top of her rounded headstone. Before we leave, I will place the roses at the base so they do not blow away. Their fragrance is soothing. I am trying to be discreet, but the tears flow freely. I use the front of my hand to wipe them away. It is a silent expression of unexpected grief. A few tawny maple leaves float over on a soft wind and settled in the grass around us. We have paid our respects to Nellie Bly. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. A wonderful tribute there to Nellie. And now I'd like to introduce our next reader, Suya Patel, with her poem, London's Moneyland.
Good evening, everyone. My poem's called London's Moneyland. Fogs hang over the neighbourhood like a ghost. Neighbours' eyes on the bulldozers, trenchers and scrapers turning concrete. Nearby, other developments spread like a virus, each with gated security, high walls concealing a lowly manicured courtyard. Each day I walk by to exercise in the park. Workmen in orange helmets on schedule debate digging 2 levels down. Estate agents show foreign investors their latest trophy price, humming zeros with pride. Nearby, the young homeless sleep in doorways. Church bells ring and people walk on the far side. There will be more developments in London's Moneyland. Empty shells where no one's home. Thank you.
Thank you, Suya, for that very powerful and, of course, timely piece. Now I'd like to introduce our next reader, Jackie Palmer, with her piece, Ladders to Heaven.
Hi, everyone. Ladders to Heaven. Village greens on the hills across the still water looked almost too perfect, like a painting created by a talented artist. And on the banks just behind where I stood, tiny forget-me-nots peeped between the blades of grass, together with rare feathery pink orchids. Grey clouds scudded a pure blue sky, through which the shimmering sun sent long shafts of golden light across the loch. You once told me these were ladders to heaven. It was Midsummer's Day, the anniversary of your death. It would be light here till midnight, the darkness barely lifting before dawn ushered in a brand new day. And as I wandered along the shoreline with the salty water splashing my walking boots, my lungs expanded with pleasure, clearing away the London grime. I had become cocooned in a solitary world, alone with my memories and disturbed only by the occasional bleating of distant sheep. The stillness of the loch belied the busy lives of the sea creatures living under the stones around my feet. Washed by the warm waters of the Gulf Stream, it was home to some of the most spectacular varieties we had ever found. Communities of blennies darted around the shallow pools as if in shock. Spider crabs crawled inquisitively through glossy seaweed. And a solitary sunstar, bright orange with stripy legs, basked in the sunshine on a coal black rock covered in spiky barnacles. Picking up a strand of slimy bladderwrack, I attempted to cover the creature, concerned hungry seagulls might snatch it for their dinner. I knew that was what you would have done. I recalled how, after your diagnosis, in an attempt to be positive, the consultant asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up. Without hesitation, you had told him, a marine biologist. And now I smiled at your joy in finding these precious creatures. Shrieking with pure delight, you gently put them in your bucket, carefully studying each one painstakingly, returning the treasures to the crevices where they had come from. Take nothing away. This was your strict rule, allowing me to break it just once when I found a tiny sea urchin shell. But first I had to convince you it was empty. Okay, Mum, only that one, though. I still have it on my dressing table, and I've never taken any others. When you got too sick to clamber over uneven rocks, we found you a flat boulder to sit on, your little sister carefully collecting the creatures for you whilst you gave instructions. After you had finished your scrutinising, she returned them safely to their homes, just as you had taught her. Strolling further along the water's edge, I arrived at the tiny cairn we'd built in your memory a few years before. Concerned the stones might have been washed away by the savage winter storms, I was relieved to find them all intact, with the waxy remains of last year's candle still standing in the hollow. I lit a new candle, placing it next to the old one, and watched as the flame flickered in the whispering breeze. Tranquility surrounded me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jackie, for sharing such a moving piece. And now I'd like to introduce our next reader, Anna Kibbe, with two pieces, The First Page and Writing Memory.
Hi, everyone. I'm reading two poems about the sometimes daunting process of writing, which we all know about, with thanks to my City Lit tutors Barbara Marsh and Christina Dunhill. Writing Memory. I've pinned my painted ladies to the page. My careful fingers pinched them one by one, pierced each soft thorax with enamel pins, and gently parted technicolor wings. Now stiffened, taut as canvas, can you see my dazzling artworks dancing zigzags nectar drunk from plant to plant, settling lightly, winking peacock eyes at passers-by? That honeyed flutter won't submit to pins, and gossamer wears thin in human hands. Rows of rainbow medals behind glass, collected in my casket, little corpses. The First Page. The maroon leather notebook, monogrammed AK, posh, for an extra £5, checks its Swiss watch. I am expected. You don't leave a notebook like this waiting. It is ready, anticipating a draft, however rough, business laugh, and good stuff as it asks for my plans for the first page. The first page. Its blankness emits a blue glow, like a field of virgin snow, the canvas yearning for the flowing brush of its master. the fresh litter tray awaiting the caress of a cat's buttocks. Do cats have buttocks? Get that ass in the chair, the notebook swears, and stay there. Forget your last night wine, head sore. Pull that blunt pencil from the drawer and write. Write something, for fuck's sake. I sharpen the pencil with haste into a waste paper bin, fold open the cover and begin. Bananas, tea bags, jacket potatoes, frozen. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Fantastic reading there. And now I'd like to introduce our next reader, Helen Diehl, with her poem, Thoughts.
Thank you. I did 2 courses with Christina in lockdown last year on my daughter's school desk in the bedroom. It was a very intimate experience, but really lovely to be involved with everybody. So my poem is called Thoughts. All the day they are active, though ponderously so sometimes, or simply just solo and steadfast, or so small a speck among sand, a mind just shimmers above and hardly notices at all. Often they come in columns, one after the other, like dashes on a page, or black taxi cabs picking off passengers at a station, or pallbearers just dealing with the detritus of life. Yet other times they scurry, alert to an urgency or danger, colliding, then separating, or there's a frizzing nest of them connected and totally intent on task. At their best, they emerge quietly from the tiny hole to a deep and complex shaft, so carefully crafted, even a close look under glass barely hints at the mastery. But at worst, they are black and broiling, chaotic and discordant, fizzing on their backs while legs pedal panic. And it is these particular ones that seem to swarm into a head at night, when even the steadfast ones can be stirred to a scurry with a stick, or set off to silently steal sleep away, crumb by crumb. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much for that wonderful reading, Helen. Now I'd like to welcome our next reader, Missy Billy D. Lewis, with an excerpt from her picture book, Little Dancing Boy. Missy, are you there?
Yes.
Over to you, Missy.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'd like to thank City Lit for helping me find my voice again. And I'd also like to thank some teachers, Neil Askey, Andrew Wheel, Billy Manning, Sarah Wardle, and Penny Jolson, who's really been challenging me in the best way to make my work be the best that it can be, and the pupils in the class as well. So the piece I'm going to read, it's a picture book. It's the second part of a series, and it's called Little Dancing Boy. And the first one was called Little Drummer Boy. It's about a little boy who likes to tap, and he finds different rhythms with his hands and then with his feet. And this one is with his feet. Picture book details getting dressed. Little dancing boy stands and taps his feet. His purple plastic spoon is on his bed. He taps his purple drumsticks. It's my birthday. Tap, tap, tap. My feet go heel, toe, plop, plop, plop. It's fun when I tap, tap, tap on the floor with my feet. Picture details. Dad and Mr. Honeycomb. Dad sits on the bed holding Mr. Honeycomb, the comb, The boy taps his feet and drumsticks. Page 7. Tap, tap, tap. I don't want my hair combed, Dad, I say. You want smart hair for your happily birthday, don't you, little dancing boy, says Dad. Yes, I do. Quick then, Mr. Honeycomb is waiting, cries Dad. Family breakfast. The boy eats breakfast with Mum and Dad. His plastic spoon is near his plate. The boy taps his drumstick on his plate and his feet on the table leg. Mum, tap, 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 my feet go. Heel, toe, clop, clop, clop. Wow, the beat is in your feet, says Mum. Will I get my birthday treat? Tap, tap, tap. Can I have it after breakfast, I ask. We're shopping with Auntie Sweetcheek, says Dad. But it's my birthday. That's not fun. The tapping makes the table shake. Please eat and later you get a birthday treat, says Mum. Supermarket, shopping trolley. Auntie Sweetcheeks pushes the trolley. Mum fills it. The boy taps around inside the shop. Tap, 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 my feet go all around the shop. Mum puts in muffins, bananas and tangerines, orange juice, crisps, and oops, aubergines. In the trolley, green Brussels sprouts go. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Oh, no, no, no. Picture details. Drinks crash tantrum. The boy crashes into stacks of tin drinks. The boy has a tantrum on the floor. An old lady speaks. The drinks, little dancing boy. Stop, shouts Auntie Sweetcheeks. Crash, bang, tumble. The drinks go. Oh, no. Stamp-a-tap, stamp-a-tap. Oh, my feet, feet, feet. Oh, you've got good rhythm, little one. Come on now, that's enough fun, says a kind old lady. He's driving me bonkers, knocking down all those cans, cries Mum. Playground, dance location. The boy stands outside on the car and taps at a surprise location. The teacher and white dog stand at the door. Ready for some fun? Asks Dad. Minnie B's happy feet, tap, tap. Where's my birthday treat? I ask, tapping my spoon, sticks and feet. That's it.
Fantastic, Missy. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm and energy. Wonderful. And now I'd like to introduce our next reader for this evening, Jill Reynolds, with her piece, Beyond Reason.
This piece is inspired by an artwork from the Pritzhorn collection, which is a garment embroidered with autobiographical text in linen and wool. It was made by Agnes Richer, who was born in 1873 and forms part of a collection of artworks from asylums in the early 20th century. After they took her there, perhaps she found solace in the sewing room, mending and patching day after day, head down, compliant, her flame red locks restrained and tucked out of sight. The years rolled on and ignored her, until when she tried to see herself, no one gazed back from the looking glass. But under the covers at night with a stolen needle, she plucked coarse yarns from her blankets. As the other women snored and dreamed of bread and broth, at dawn she bundled the skeins away with her grey linen jacket, hiding her things away like a secret child. Later, unobserved in the evening twilight, Agnes would pull the rough threads, stuttering through the cloth. Her story stitching itself, the words cramming themselves together so they blurred into a crowd. Her needle's evidence, shouting out to the world, "Here I am." Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Jill. Wonderful piece and such fascinating inspiration. Now I'd like to introduce our next reader this evening, Ruth Railton, with her poem, Piece by Piece.
Hi everyone. I've done a few different poetry courses at City Lit over the last year or so. So I'd just like to thank Julie, Irigaray, Christina Diehl, and Cranich, as well as all the students in my classes who've all helped to shape my writing in different ways. I've used poetry to help process a difficult time that I've been going through. So sorry, it's not the cheeriest one. Piece by piece. It was sometime last year that I died. Nobody realised. I carried on as normal, dressing, eating, going to work, but a dead woman had crept inside. It was that Christmas get-together when everyone brought their babies, smiling for the flashes, muscles frozen in place, for the failed cycle we tried to hide. It was a message with a punctuation that stabbed me in the eyes. "What's the goss? How's the IVF?" When I answered, he didn't reply. It was the cancelled embryo transfer on April Fool's Day, a sick joke or real life, my legs buckling mid-stride. It was the pregnancy announcement that kicked me in the stomach when you added you hadn't even tried. It was the assumptions that were made when I said I didn't have kids that stamped on my heart. Not maternal, I can't abide. It was the baby span that fired like a sputtering machine gun. I tried to defend with compliments, but still bullets pelted in my side. It was the sneaking out of the 12-person yurt to test in the Portaloo at dawn, then pitching in to clean up the mess, hiding my tears from the bride. It was the fishing for praise like a hook in my gut you wanted for looking after your kids, an opportunity I've been denied. Piece by piece, I fell apart. It was sometime last year that I died. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. An incredibly moving and powerful piece and such a beautiful reading. Now I'd like to introduce our next reader for the evening, Catherine Sweeney, with her piece, How to Eat a Fig.
Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to thank City Lit for this opportunity. How to eat a fig. Sit half in a summer's shade, fruit balanced on a china plate, reflected in cool droplets that trickle so slowly down the waiting wineglass. Stretch your legs to the welcome heat that seeps through your veins like honey. Then tilt your head just a little to catch the last stray rays of sunlight. Slip hot, dusty feet from sandals, slide them to rest on a carpet of coarse, sandy earth. As you lift damp tendrils of hair from your neck, feel the curve and smoothness of the freshly plucked fig. Be aware of its subtle shades, the colour of the skin it wears. Hesitate for one moment. Enjoy the heavy, ripe fruit cradled in the palm of your hand. Bite into the sweet, seeded warmth. Thank you.
Fantastic, such a delicious poem on a number of levels. Thank you, Catherine. And now I'd like to introduce our next reader. I'd like to welcome Barry Coyden with Shouting into the Storm. Hello, Barry.
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
Fantastic.
Except I can't start the video. Okay, here we are. There you are. Here I am. Yes. Excellent. Great. I kind of think if you're writing a poem, you're setting yourself up for a fall. You're up against some fairly heavyweight contenders: Edmund Thomas, Eliot, Larkin, Dylan, George Herbert. But secretly, you know, you're pretty good, so write on. Anyway, Shouting into the Storm in Cornwall. What a day. The storm's hammering my front door, clouds ripped from their moorings, passers-by leaning dangerously into the wind. I was safe indoors, thrilled by the howling tumult outside, bending the sturdiest shrub, rattling the window of my front room. There appeared the face of a young man, his long hair blown across his face. Then he was gone, lifted by the wind and carried into the branches of the elm by the garden gate. A woman and two young children flew past my window to lodge next to him. I was reluctant to leave the comfort of my room, yet I could see they needed help, but the storm was such I feared I would be picked up and dashed against some rock. Stepping outside, I immediately regretted my decision, for I too was whisked away and dumped next to the four dangling unfortunates. I learnt they were out walking when the storm struck. On a family holiday for Poplar in East London, they were returning that evening on the overnight sleeper from Plymouth. I said I thought they'd have difficulty catching it in time, but they had a plan. And as one let go of the branch, I watched the wind blow them in the direction of the railway station. Have a safe journey, I shouted into the storm and waved goodbye before I too was carried off.
Thank you so much, Barry, for that wonderful reading. So much energy. And now I'd like to introduce our final reader of the evening, Mia Nakaji Monier, with two pieces, Our Toilet Has Googly Eyes and Prayer.
Hi. I'm so happy to be reading here tonight with everyone. I took a couple of courses with Rowan Hisayo Buchanan at the beginning of this year, and it was such a warm and supportive environment at City Lit that I felt able to experiment with fiction in a way that I hadn't before, and out of that, I ended up experimenting with poetry for the first time in a very long time also. So I'm sharing the first love poems probably since 7th grade. So thank you to Rowan and City Lit and to all of you for being here. The first one I'm going to read is called Prayer. Lying beside E in the night, with the window open and cool air misting in, the rise and fall of his breath gently tugging my skin, I observed the whole holy curve from his shoulder to his neck, then to his chin, his hair gleaming in the dirty orange-gray glow of the moon and the city lights, the ends of his neck curling up towards his ear. He breathes, and outside the breeze rattles the palm trees and the bugs chirp, and the open blinds make a panel of light on the ceiling. I can't imagine the future anymore, beyond months in the same apartment, the noon sky gray with wildfire smoke and a hot pink sun, earthquakes, a counting of seconds like prayers, my parents gone, maybe, vague as the hazy moonlight, a child, or learning how to live with practiced hope. I want so much better for him, soft as this comforter and sweet as this bug song, a moment after a moment after a moment. And this poem is called Our Toilet Has Googly Eyes. Our toilet has googly eyes and a pair of felt brows because E put them there. I helped him cut the felt with my dress shears. They sliced through like they were meant for shaping brows for a toilet. My pile of colorful felt and bag of googly eyes were meant for it too. I bought them for no particular reason, restless at the craft store. This is how we collaborate. He rigged macrame rope to the lid with packing tape, and I puppeted the toilet character while he filmed all by myself. While all by myself played in the background. It was at the start of the pandemic, a way to cheer up his coworkers who made up the chorus. He edited their videos together, one with a recorder and a dog, one in the shower with a wig, everyone cheering up to cheer each other up. I sang too. I guess I voiced the toilet. He dances in the apartment when it's just the two of us and he's not making a video. He likes the moves where you put your gloves on or you take them off, his hand moving slowly up or down his arm. His eyes are closed. He looks over his shoulder as nonchalantly as a cat. He's not shy. He shakes his ass. He looks over the other shoulder. He pivots and pivots and pivots until he's beside me. And what can I do but dance? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mia. Really beautiful sentiments and beautiful reading. Now I'd like to introduce our head of school, Ian Tucknott, who'd like to make some closing comments.
Thank you, Maria. I nearly forgot to come back on. I was so immersed in the readings there. Thank you so much to all of our readers this evening. It's such an array of voices and styles and characters and words. I've been so inspired myself. A huge thank you for our readers for joining us this evening, and thank you, of course, to our audience out there who've spent their evening kind of hopefully taking in those words and enjoying it themselves. Of course, if you have enjoyed what you've heard this evening and would like to download a copy of the anthology, the link should hopefully be appearing in the chat box now. Or if you'd like a printed version, links should also be in the chat. So have a look there now. Yeah, they've appeared. Thank you, Jax. And of course, if you're to download a copy is free, but if you would like a copy, we recommend or hope that you might consider making a donation to the City Lit bursary, which goes towards supporting those on low income access education. City Lit. Before we close, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Maria for her fantastic comparing this evening, and also, of course, for her work reading and editing the anthology alongside Thomas McMullen. Also, a huge thank you to Jackson for his administration and formatting of the anthology, and of course, the fantastic Patel, who sat beside me, for her leadership and oversight of the project. If you have been inspired this evening and would like to explore your own creativity, then please visit citylit.ac.uk and have a look at the range of courses available up until Christmas and also into the new year. We have courses online and also in person in class at our premises at City Lit. Final announcement is just to say that applications are also open for our annual Mallory Blackman Scholarships for Unheard Voices. Again, if you're interested in applying for one of our scholarships, please follow the link within the chat box. Once again, huge thank you to everybody for sharing their voices with us this evening. And I wish you all a wonderful evening and a very happy weekend and a happy Christmas to come. Take care. Bye-bye.